Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast, where strength is more than a number on the bar. I'm your host, Ross Leppala, powerlifter, coach, and co-creator of the Intentional Athlete Experience. This show is for lifters, movers, and seekers who know that what happens in the gym echoes into your life. We explore how to train with purpose, live with clarity, and channel the pursuit of strength into something deeper, something transformative. Each episode, we'll dive into conversation, tools, and insights that help you align your mindset, body, and spirit. Because real growth doesn't just happen under the barbell. It happens in your mind, in your breath, and in your choices. This is about more than just PRs. This is about presence, power, and progress that lasts. Welcome to the journey, my friend. Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. Hey, what's up, my friends? Welcome back to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have a conversation with Theo Harris. Theo Harris is a lifter that I've worked with for some time now. He's got a good story. Lifting is one of those things that really has had a massive impact on his life, and it really resonates with me because a lot of the things that Theo talks about, I can very much relate to in terms of some of the ways that lifting really influenced my life early on and how it became an outlet and really transformed my life. And that's a big reason why I like to have these conversations, because lifting has so much more to offer us than just PRs. And if we're seeking that external validation, it's going to be unsustainable and unfulfilling. And this is how we provide, and this is how we cultivate a more fulfilling experience with our training, with the pursuit of powerlifting or whatever other strength sport you might be into. This is it. Train with intention. Without further ado, Theo. All right. Theo, my friend, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, young man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for joining me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Truly my pleasure.
Yeah, man. I know we've had quite a few conversations offline, and you've shared some stuff with me, so I'm definitely excited to dig in. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff and perspectives and experiences that you can bring to the table on how lifting can change and transform your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't we start with a little just intro? Who's Theo? Where do you live? What do you do? For anyone who might not know who you are.
Sure. My name's Theo Harris. I live in Renton, but I work in Seattle, so it's easier to say Seattle for the most part. I coach powerlifting as a kind of a community I've started called the Disciples of Steel. And then I also do personal training at Uplift Fitness, and they're both based out of Cap Hill. And then I powerlift. That's pretty much, I powerlift, and I have 3 kids, and so that's about all I have time for.
Yeah, for sure. Disciples of Steel.
Yeah.
What is that about? What's the name? What's the inspiration behind that name for you?
During 2020, I had decided that I wanted to start coaching, and I wanted a cool, catchy brand, because at the time I thought I was gonna like try to do like a whole clothing brand thing and like really try to expand on that and try to make it its own kind of organism.
Yeah.
And the idea, originally I wanted to do Disciples of Iron, but with some very brief research discovered that that's a motorcycle club.
Oh, yeah.
And to avoid stepping on any toes, I decided Disciples of Steel was also pretty cool sounding.
Gotcha, yeah.
And then the idea of Disciples is, this has been kind of getting into weight training is something I've described as a spiritual experience for me. I think a lot of people find something that they would consider, I guess, a higher calling, or something that gives them a greater sense of purpose, whether it's running, or a lot of people find it in faith, and a lot of people find it in community. And that was what I connected to when I got into lifting weights, was a stronger sense of community. And so I wanted something that captured that. And I also wanted something that sounds cool. And so that's how I landed on the name.
Fantastic. So obviously it sounds like lifting's played a pretty significant and important influence and role in your life to get you to a point where
Yeah,
you want to coach.
absolutely.
What's going on there? What does that start to look like?
About it would have just been 8 years ago in May.
Okay.
I had I had a relationship with alcohol that I felt was no longer serving me. I had gotten blood work done because I was worried about diabetes, and the the doctor who administered the blood work said, actually, your blood sugar looks fine. I'm really worried about your liver. And I was 23 at the time, so that's an alarming thing to hear.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I was like, "There's no way that's something I have to be worried about at this age." And so it was something called advanced liver function, which you get really inconclusive information with online looking it up. But essentially, it's inflammation of the liver where it's producing more enzymes, and it's starting to overwork itself.
Okay.
And it can be the precursor of cirrhosis and some other more dangerous liver diseases. And so for me, what that really allowed me to see was that it was probably time to start making a change. I started drinking habitually probably at 15, and then as you move out and you get more autonomy and there's less trying to hide it, there's also less paying as close attention to how much you are drinking. And so what started as like party drinking became more recreational, and then as I got older it became something that I couldn't function without. Everything I was doing was sort of, at the end of the day, it was to get me back home so I could start drinking again.
Oh, okay.
And my dad had reached out at that time because he had seen that I was starting to take a really sharp decline.
Yeah.
Like I was just sounding more depressed over the phone and feeling less connected to me. And he lives in Maine, and he was like, "Why don't you come stay out here for a bit, and let's see if we can get you straightened out," basically. And so I got fired from my pizza shop job pretty shortly after that because I wouldn't stop drinking on the job, and I was being belligerent to other
Oh, well.
coworkers. And so it felt like I had nothing else to lose.
Yeah.
So in pretty short order, I moved to Maine, and one of the first things we do is sign up for a gym. And in my head, it was supposed to be like a commercial gym, but we go to a gym called Dynamax Training Systems, and I walk in there, and it's nothing like I expect. It's probably 1,200 square feet. It's got what I now know are monoliths across the back wall, and deadlift platform at the front, and then two comp benches, a rack of dumbbells, and a leg press, and that's really it. And I was really lucky in that I met a really good coach early on who knew what someone of my size would probably enjoy doing with their body. Because he had asked me, what I was interested in, and I was like really into Joe Rogan, and I didn't have a better answer at the time, so I just said functional strength. And I was also wearing gloves at the time,
Okay.
and
Like lifting gloves,
he was
not
like,
boxing gloves.
"Yeah,
Gotcha.
like no, 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 no,
Yeah.
nothing, no, 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 big, thick, padded leather gloves." And he was like, "Let's give squatting a try." And so in our first session, we did box squats, and I hated them.
Mm-hmm.
Was not very good at them. I did not like how the bar felt on my back. I didn't like the experience of squatting whatsoever. But then we tried deadlifting, and from the first time I picked up a barbell, it was something that I just really liked using my body
Yeah.
for. I think I worked up to 275 off of low blocks, and was like, "Oh, this feels good. This feels natural on me."
Mm-hmm.
And then that was really the start of something really special for me. It was something at the time my dad was being really supportive, so we were going like 6 times a week. We'd have our weekly session with Matt where we'd work on technique and all that kind of stuff. And then everything else we were doing, we were just kind of we were just kind of going off the cuff.
Yeah.
And then within a few months, I had lost 80 pounds. I hadn't had a drink at the time, and was like a bunch of really strange experiences start happening when your body evolves that rapidly.
Yeah.
So I think the first things that I really noticed were I had really strange lucid dreams all of the time,
Okay.
which is pretty typical if you're using a depressant or any sort of drug. When you stop consuming that,
Oh,
your brain just starts dumping chemicals out.
yeah.
And I remember that stood out to me because I was starting to process all of these things that I think I was avoiding in my life, and I was starting to have to confront some really uncomfortable things that had always been there that I just never really paid attention to. And then when I moved back to Washington, I noticed that people didn't immediately recognize me because my body had changed so much. And to me, that was significant because it was almost symbolic in that, like, you have changed something so profoundly. This experience you had was so meaningful that you're unrecognizable to other people that had known you. I mean, this is maybe 4 or 5 months after the
Right.
fact. And so that was really an intense and that was a really intense period in my life. And I'm starting to lose my train of thought a little bit. But I think that was the thing that really got me bought into this being something that I wanted to continue to do.
Yeah. Right. And it was a catalyst to giving you an outlet to do something different with your energy rather than continue to suppress it with substance abuse. You mentioned that
Yes.
a lot of uncomfortable things were starting to kind of bubble to the surface. Did you seek therapy or counseling to start help processing any of those things, or were you able to do that on your own?
It's a really good question. I started going to therapy in like in a way where I was bought in and trying to change in 2023. So at the time, I was kind of like in this would have been 2017.
Right. Okay.
I had felt like I had put that all behind me, and I think it did allow me to do was start unpacking the closet and looking at all of these things that I had avoided. Meaning, like, I grew up in a really tense household with a lot of verbal and physical abuse that was specifically targeted towards my mom. And there was that's just a really uncomfortable thing that you really want to put behind you pretty much immediately,
Yeah.
right? And so I think what lifting allowed me to do initially was start expressing those feelings in a way that wasn't drinking, in a way that wasn't picking
Yeah.
fights with people or being confrontational, in a way that's counterproductive. And it allowed me to have something where I could put all of that intensity and that energy. And one, I was rewarded because you're putting a bunch of heavy weight on a bar and it feels really good to move that weight. But then additionally, there's other people that are around you and cheering you on and supporting you. And I don't think that was an experience I had had until I had started lifting weights. I didn't play sports or anything like that growing up.
Yeah.
And so being in a room of, at the time, it was almost complete strangers, and they would see you getting stuck on a deadlift or getting stuck on a bench, and they start yelling your name and cheering you on, helped you feel included,
Yeah.
right? Or being asked to spot someone squatting 700 pounds. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm happy to be a part of it.
Right.
And I just don't think that was an experience I had had till then.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that became a catalyst. It became something, a space that allowed you to express some of your feelings and blow some steam off. I can very much relate to that. But then it took you
Absolutely.
now some time before you really started to do like some of the healing and processing work. Like what happened in that time frame of finding the barbell to starting any kind of therapy? Like there's a big chunk of time there.
I started raising kids.
Gotcha.
Is really the main point of it. I met Savannah in 2018, and pretty shortly after she moved in with me, because of some complicated relationships with her living situation. And so I think it was after 2 weeks of meeting, suddenly I've got two kids in my house and a person that I really like, but is still pretty much a stranger to me. And I don't. This is probably something you can relate to, but in my experience with raising kids, I realized a lot of the things that I had internalized about my behavior and my parenting style were me repeating how I was raised. And you do get a choice in the moment whether or not you want to pass that on, but it's still a really intense and overwhelming experience. And it like the only way it really changes is if you do the work, and
Yeah.
it doesn't get better until you choose to make it better. And so either in 2022 or 2023, I hit a really low point emotionally and was really struggling with my identity as a parent and trying to balance all of these different things I was trying to do in my life between coaching and training and raising kids. And Savannah pointed out that therapy was probably a really good place to start. And I started doing that, and I started opening up, and I started talking about all of these experiences that I had had growing up with my stepfather, and like all of this anger that I was dealing with because of that. And even by virtue of talking about it, it was really helpful. But we one of the things I was recommended to do was just cognitive behavioral
Hmm.
therapy. So just addressing the language as it comes up and having kind of an out of body experience and exploring those reactions as they're happening as best as you can. And I think that's a learned skill for sure. It is something that sucks. It is something that sucks to try to do, and then over time you get better at it. And you talk a lot about meditation.
Yeah.
I have my own version of meditation. I think lifting weights is a good way to practice a meditative headspace because, especially if you're going for big lifts, you have these moments where you have all of these emotions crashing and falling and just rushing out of you. And being able to take a step back and focus on something like controlling your breathing and practicing being present with those feelings instead of, I guess, avoiding them or trying to pull away from them,
Yeah.
I found to be super meditative.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, that's a really good point because, we break that down a little bit. A lot of lifters are like, oh, I don't want to meditate. What do you think you're doing in the act of athletic expression? That is a
Yep.
meditation if you're doing it correctly. So,
Yep.
yes, meditating outside of the training session will 100% boost your training session because they're the same thing. It's all about getting out of your
Absolutely.
damn head and getting into your body. And athletic expression is a great way to get out of your head and into your body. Like the physiological, physical
100,000%.
sensations. Boom, done. You're a meditator.
Yeah.
Welcome to powerlifting.
I think too, and this is a conclusion I came to just going through it, especially hypertrophy work. I You have to focus on how something feels, and I think you have to be very present and practice being uncomfortable. And that's true of resistance training in general, but it was something I noticed during like super high reps of leg press. It's like you are very aware of what your are feeling like. You are getting to the point where you're pushing failure. There's this intensity and this tension that is very easy to just throw the guards up and put away, and now you don't have to deal with that feeling anymore. But as you get better at training, you have to learn how to lean into that feeling and again be present within yourself, be present in that moment, and acknowledge being uncomfortable, but learning how to work with being uncomfortable.
There's something in this too that I think is important to kind of pluck at a little bit here is that I suspect that in your lifting, that getting better at that skill of being present and being with those sensations and being with the discomfort of it empowered you to do the same thing as a parent and being present as a parent even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I don't think I have anything more to add to that. Actually, I think you hit that on the head.
Well, I mean, maybe a way to share that from your lens a little bit more specifically is like, what did it look like before you had uh, that moment of connecting that? Like, what did it look like before that moment? And like when you were having those moments of showing up, regurgitating your parents in that parenting style, like what did that look like in transition as you were using lifting and lifting was teaching you those things and you apply those lifting learnings to parenting?
Uh, I would have these flash in the pan reactions to stuff that is very, what as I've learned, many thoughts just came out all at the same time.
Yeah, fun.
I got really I got really good at parenting during the pandemic because before I was working all the time or I was in school. So the way I dealt with being a parent early on was just not being home that much. I would work late at night, I'd leave early in the morning. I would be there and be supportive, but I was very much a friend to my kids and not a father to my kids. During the pandemic, I had nowhere else to go. And so as these flash in the pan reactions would come out, I was able to more often catch those moments and understand that those feelings weren't mine and got better at asking myself, what is something I would do as a parent in these moments? Do I really care about this? Or was I told that this is something I should be upset about? And now I've learned that this is something to be upset about,
Yeah, man.
if that makes
Oh, it
sense.
makes total sense, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
It is.
Like one of my favorite books that I've ever read was Conscious Parenting, and that's a lot of what they talk about. Like, is your emotional reaction something that was trained into you by your parents, or is it yours? Like, is it yours? Can you own it? And being really honest with yourself and really open and reflective on it is really important. And they also bring up one of my favorite things from that book was how they talk about your kid is going to be your mirror. Like your kid is a spiritual opportunity of growth for you because they are a mirror. They're going to reflect back to you your unconscious so that you can become more conscious of it. And when you look at your kid and go, they're behaving this way because I've taught them to behave this way. What about me is being expressed in their life right now? Like what is that? And looking back at yourself rather than looking at controlling them, looking inwards. And man, there can be some really hard and cool things to come from things like that. So it's really awesome to hear that
Yep.
you're getting that in your lifting and parenting and how they come together like that.
Absolutely. That's my youngest.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Hi, Paul. I think that's exactly it, man.
Yeah.
Um, I know it, back to the conscious parenting and I think there was a moment I had with my 6 month old, and this is just going to be a bit of a tangent, but you reminded me of it. Um, he was falling asleep, and I was rubbing his hair, and he's 2 now, but he was 6 months at the time. I was rubbing his hair, and for the first time since he was born, I saw my face and his,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd never experienced that as a parent because I met my first 2 kids.
Yeah.
And so suddenly I'm looking at this kid and I see me in him and I go, you have no idea what a good dad is. And there's just this voice in my head that kicked in. And then who I call the parent in my head, the dad in me, says, that doesn't mean you're a bad one, though. And that was a really profound thing for me to for me to be able to tell myself. Because what it really did allow me to do was let go of a lot of the things we've already talked about and these learned reactions. And it allowed me to it allowed me to look at who I wanted to be as a dad and the imprint that I wanted to leave with these kids. And it allowed me to look at the parts of myself that I'm really proud of and what I wanted to share with them. And I think that's related because I had a lot of guilt as a dad because I didn't know if what I was doing was right, because there is no handbook. You have no idea
Right.
what it's going to look like in 10 and 20 years. You have no idea what you're going to hear back from them. But what that realization allowed me to do was, I guess, kind of clean the slate and be like, you always have a chance to learn with them and grow with them and make better choices day after day. And I'm going to end this thought on a quote I really heard, a quote that really landed with me, and it's, the best apology is changed behavior.
Mm.
And that really landed with me because, I mean, kids say they're sorry all the time because they make mistakes all of the time. And I think I've tried to be much better about it as a parent with my learned reactions. But those reactions are learned for a reason. And so being able to, on your end as a parent, acknowledge those and learn and grow from those is, to me, what the core of really good parenting is.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. So when you found lifting, it gave
Yeah.
you this place to express some of this anger, and you move back to Washington, you meet Savannah, you your relationship moves along fairly quickly, and you become a dad fairly quickly. And now you have all this stuff bubbling up, kind of festering in the background. You're still lifting during this time, right? Yeah.
100%.
And so that's still, you still have the way I would look at it, you still have the pressure valve that's releasing the pressure to keep the pressure cooker from exploding, but there's still all the shit in the pressure cooker, all the background stuff. And so I assume
Yeah.
then it was in 2023 when you started going to therapy that's when you really started to take the lid off and open things up and unpack it and get it out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of that was age. So I started raising kids when I was 23. And in 2023, I would have been 28 or
Mm-hmm.
29. And I think you just get, like, your brain fully forms. You're getting to an age where that changes
Yeah.
and you're able to start. You have enough time between those 2 points in your
Yeah.
life. But yeah, that was absolutely when I really started to unpack things and start digging through what I wanted to get rid of, essentially.
Yeah, man. I hear that. I was around the same age, I think, when I sought help and counseling and finally realized, like, whoa, I'm carrying around a bunch of bullshit and it is massively
Yeah, man.
limiting my life. I I have no idea how to unpack it, but I need to start unpacking it
Yeah.
somehow. What was that unpacking process like for you?
Uh,
Like you walk into
there's
therapy
a
day
couple.
one, it's like you lay on the couch and look at the ceiling and you know, because I think a lot of people have that impression.
Yeah, it's not right. Like, I think the first. So, uh, what? My mom divorced my stepdad in and started divorce proceedings in like 2020 or late 2022, I
Hmm.
think. And what that meant was we could start talking about, as my brothers and I could start talking about everything we had been
Mm,
through that we felt like we couldn't really share before.
gotcha.
And even having like, we were speaking to a guardian and for my youngest brother who was trying to get emancipated, and I had to write a testimony of my experiences growing up. And I remember I get off the phone with the guardian just sobbing in my car. But I think it was because was finally able to release it and let it go. And I think what therapy allowed me to do was speak to it really directly and stop trying to avoid being as honest as I really could about. I think to get to the original question, I think what therapy allowed me to do is unpack it honestly and not avoid the uncomfortable, not avoid what I think what I think therapy allowed me to do was unpack it honestly and not pick the parts that I wanted to look at
Mm.
or pick the parts that I wanted to
Yeah.
avoid. It allowed me to take everything out wholesale and start unpacking it and undressing it
Yeah.
and getting to the really awful parts.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is difficult and necessary.
Yeah, it really is because it's like it's the things you've been avoiding your whole life.
Yeah. Like I really enjoy a lot of Alfred Adler's psychology work in Adlerian psychology and a lot of what he talks about. And it plays on cognitive behavioral therapy and some of the other techniques as well. But like everybody's got trauma. Everybody's had something, some bad circumstance or situation, something negative has happened in their life. And if we fail to unpack it, if we fail to look at it as the fullest truth that it is and acknowledge it, and if we don't do that, we fail to integrate the experience. And it's the failure to integrate the experience that keeps it as trauma, and now we're bonded to it, and the story around the situation becomes how we identify with it rather than shifting the narrative and shifting the meaning. Because at least one of the things Adler talks about is like there is no trauma. It's not that the experience of the situation didn't happen, and it's not that it was an uncomfortable situation. It's not to deny any of that. It's to say that it only means what we say it means. And that really resonated with me because I really like the Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And it's like it's all about the meaning that you apply and give something to it. And the trauma, the
Yeah.
experience is the same way. And like that resonated with me because that was a big thing that set me free when I looked back at my life and I said, oh, this didn't happen to me. This happened for me. And it happened for me because now I can speak in this way, in this way, in this way. Holy fucking empowered. Let's go.
Yeah. 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 So I had a coach recommend Man Search for Meaning, a coach at Rain City Fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like, the title, it wasn't my favorite title. I was like, this sounds like very alpha male-y. This sounds like not the book I'm really
Mm-hmm.
interested in. And then obviously if you've read the book, it's a
Oh,
deeply
man.
painful
Yeah.
book. It's incredible.
Yep.
And there's a story from it, and it was a picture, right? It was a picture in my life. There's a story in it. It's towards the end of the book. He's talking about applying logotherapy, and he's talking to this woman who got married but remained childless and was affluent and traveled and partied. And the question he asked was like, what gave your life meaning? And she breaks down because she couldn't find any deeper
Mm-hmm.
meaning behind her
Yeah.
life. And then she asks another mother who I think her youngest child died and she was left with a paraplegic older son, and through the guilt and the grief tried to take her own life, and the person that stopped her was the son. And so when she was asked to find the meaning in her life, she said, I was able to give someone a better chance at life than they would have otherwise had. And I'm hearing this as I'm walking to pick my son up from martial arts who practices with one of my closest friends. And I'm thinking about, every moment that's led up to this one and meeting Savannah too early and not being sure about what I'm supposed to do with my life and if I'm making the right decisions, if I'm ruining these kids' lives. And I'm watching Howard, my oldest, like being really engaged and having a really good time practicing this. And I have to step off to the side and just put my hands in my knees and stop, because it was, again, one of those moments where I was like, I was also able to help these kids have a better chance at life then, and it put everything down for me, man.
Yeah.
It was really powerful.
Yeah. It's a
Love
powerful
that
book.
book.
Absolutely powerful
Yeah,
book. If you haven't, anybody listening, you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend it. It's very good.
absolutely.
Lots of good nuggets of wisdom to come from it. You know, when you're saying all that, I couldn't help but think how it related to, you didn't enjoy the title of A Man's Search for Meaning. And I've read a ton of books now over the years of my own personal development, and a couple of them that have off-putting titles have been my absolute favorite. They're challenging.
Sure.
They touch you in a different way that you're like, what the fuck? But you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, there's some hard truth behind it too. But in that journey, I've also read a couple of less than desirable books on masculinity and femininity. And
Truly.
there was one book that I read that the dude was expressing that women only want an alpha male and stepdads are like beta males because they're raising some other dude's kid. And I'm like,
Someone recommended that
this
book to me.
this fucking guy doesn't realize who the real hero in the room is,
Totally. I completely agree with you.
because that's
Yeah,
what it
dude,
is.
someone recommended that book to me. Savannah cracks that book open and she finds that quote immediately. And I was like, I fired that guy the next day. I was like, I'm never talking to this person again. That's who you're speaking to
Yeah.
in your head. And I've never felt more disrespected or dismissed in that environment before. I was so upset, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly the book
I
you're talking
I don't
about.
even remember which book it was, but
I think it's Finding Your Inner Alpha.
yeah, I I really don't remember. That doesn't ring a bell, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I
I
remember
trust
reading
you.
that and I was like, you know, do you not realize and recognize like the courage it takes to step up and fill that role?
Truly.
Like I get what you're saying, except that's also probably from your fucked up narrow life experience view, and you haven't been able to place a better meaning on it. So
Yeah.
keep searching, buddy.
Absolutely, dude.
But yeah,
Yeah, and so that was the book that came to mind when I was recommended Man's Search for Meaning. I was like, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna fall for that
hmm
shit again.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I can see why that would do that.
Yeah.
So when you're going through the therapy and you start unpacking this pressure cooker and you're really looking at all the rawness and you're not able to only look at the parts that you want to look at. You got to look at the totality. How does what starts how do you start experiencing the shift in your life as that happens? Because all I can think about is how a lot of shifts started happening in my life. And so I'm curious as to what the shift was like in your life.
I think the first thing was I started learning that I was not as extroverted as I thought I was. And that a lot of what I was doing was approval seeking and people pleasing.
Mm,
And so where I thought I was this really outgoing, extroverted person, I was building this insulation for myself was with like, well, as long as these people like me, I can't be a bad person. And I think a lot of that language was really destructive for me because now my intrinsic worth was what other people put it
yeah,
as.
big time.
And that's a really harmful thing to do for
Yeah,
yourself. So I immediately started letting that go. And what that also allowed me to do is be more present as a parent. And what I mean by that is where I was invested in getting what I was invested in getting out of these people, usually mostly at the gym, I was now like, well, what do my kids think about me? What are the people that are like gonna know me for the rest of my life gonna think about me? What am I proud of the person I'm being around them?
yeah,
And it allowed me to start looking at who I was as a partner to my wife and who I was to my kids as a father. And then with my youngest, Paul, knowing that this was coming up, where they were going to start being a reflection of you. And what did you want that reflection to say when you had to look into it? I was like, I want to see what the best version of myself I can be for these guys are,
Yeah.
because I I am very lucky in that my father and my mom have both chosen to rebuild the relationship with me as an adult. And I feel much closer to them I feel like I can trust them as parents. And that's been really powerful for me. And I think part of that has been the work I've done in therapy. And I think part of it is they saw the growth and change I have gone through over the last decade of my life, essentially, and have wanted to be a part of that growth with me. And so, to bring it back to the point, I didn't want to have to do that with my kids. I just wanted to be, when it was their choice to be a part of my life, I wanted them to want to be there with me.
Yeah.
And so, those are the things that started running through my head as I was considering, as I was unpacking, as I was looking at everything in its totality.
Yeah. Interesting to learn that you're not as extroverted as you thought, and like that
Super.
it was more an expression of attention seeking, external validation seeking. And so as you unpack that, the thing that comes up for me here is, especially if we relate it back to lifting, is powerlifting can be ugly in ways in that it a lot of people start to really seek the external validation, and they really like everything hinges on a PR this, PR that, PR, and that's really detrimental to the growth and development of a lifter. So how did unpacking that and processing and integrating that benefit your lifting?
I actually have a pretty good prepared answer for that one.
All right.
Um, I realized I also started training with some parents, and we started talking about the life balance of training with parents and working as parent, or training, the life balance of training with kids, working while
Mm-hmm.
raising kids, and all that kind of stuff, and how there really isn't one. I had a really good conversation with a parent where I was asking, because they had coached some world record holders, they had coached people who were also influential in the space, and they also have multiple kids, and I go like, how are you supposed to balance all of this? And they said something that floored me, and it completely changed my perspective from that moment on. And they said, your number one job is being a good dad, and everything else will find its place. And I was like, oh, holy shit, of course that's the answer. That's so much more simple than I was trying to make it. That is exactly what the answer is. So, what that allowed me to then do in my own training and seeking that external validation was it allowed me to go, I am so fucking lucky that I have a wife that not only supports me in doing this, but thinks this is super cool. That I have three kids that think this is super cool that I do this, and that I get to have this time to do this. I get to train. I get to be a part of this community. And that's what I think the perspective shift for me was that it's not that I have to do this. It's not that this is what is keeping me sober or anything like that. I get to do this because I get to be this person, because I have this support system and these people that really care about me around me. And that was like, again, that was another one of those moments where it was like, oh, so much has just gotten off my shoulders. And so like that's really the answer. I think that's the best I can put it.
Yeah. A way that, at least a thought that comes to my mind to put an analogy on this too, is that when you're in a spot like that and you realize that you no longer need the external validation of the lifting, you just unshackled yourself from the people around you. You unshackled yourself from them in that you are no longer defined by what other people think and approve of you. You're free to do what you want.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And the interesting part to me about a lot of that stuff is that in those limitations that exist and can exist in our life is whatever limiting device it is, right? If it's a cage or if it's shackles or if it's handcuffs or if it's a chain or whatever it is, that is containing you. You hold the key.
Yep.
You constructed the jail cell. You are choosing to go in there. But it's never been constructed with all four walls, so you can walk out anytime you want. The door is open on the cage.
Sure.
So the point is you have to validate yourself, not allow the other people to do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just sitting back and trying to digest that a little bit, right? Because like I 100% like I was talking to Savannah the other day. This is related, I promise. But I was talking to Savannah the other day, and she was like listening to either Soft White Underbelly or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was people talking about heavy drug use, and what they really loved about it is you have the freedom to do whatever you want because all you really care about is getting the drug. And so I was thinking about that in my experience and that I really didn't care about what else was happening in my life as long as I got to be drunk. And the way I want to bring that back to what we were just talking about was and that's a very selfish way to live. And I think it allows you never grow beyond serving the bottle or serving whatever you're doing. And so the way I let myself out of the cage in that sense was understanding that I didn't want to be drunk. I wanted to get out of whatever I was stuck in, right? I wanted to stop paying attention to whatever I couldn't stop thinking about. It was a way to avoid all of this. And I think very much in the same way, if in training, if it isn't giving you what you want in external load on the bar, I can't squat 600 pounds yet, I can't bench 405 yet. I think it allows you to make choices based on those numbers.
Yeah.
And that's an example.
Yeah. No, it's a good one, though. And it's real.
But by making choices in service of those numbers, like I found, you just end up making really poor choices about your training.
Yep.
And I think that's a microcosm of everything in life. I think the thing I always used to say when I had just gotten sober is if you're always looking at the mountaintop, you'll never realize how far up the trail you've gotten. And so it's important to check where your feet are every once in a while.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've tried to remind myself of more often now as I've started to get, I'm only 30, which I realize is young because I'm lucky I get to work with people
Yeah.
that are in their 40s and 50s and 60s and still doing it. And you get to hear about their life experiences. But I feel like the thing that I'm really excited about is I feel like I'm much better off where I'm at in my life now than I was when I started all of this.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. I really like how you relate it back to like when we think about it from the lifting perspective, since that's a primary reason why we're here today.
Sure.
If that goal that you believe, that 405-pound bench press, that fourth pound plate, that fourth 45, if for some reason you believe that will get you the recognition, so that becomes the thing that you anchor your choices on, you're going to make a lot of poor choices, and it's probably not going to align with the training plan and program that's targeted to help get you there. And it becomes self-sabotaging, whether you're aware of it or not, particularly if your training is auto-regulated.
Yeah. I just had a random thought. I don't think about it.
Have at it.
I had Gus, who I just did a case study on, sends me a PR triple at 500 for 3. And I think the most we had ever touched on the platform was like 507. And so this was huge for us. And it was right at the end of a block, right before we pivoted into the peak. And he starts sending me all of these notes about what he thinks he did wrong in his technique. And I had a really cool coaching moment with him where I was like, I don't unless there's something I feel I need to speak to, I don't like to spend a lot of time with someone at your experience level getting microscopic about technique. With any luck, we're at a weight range that is challenging your ability to hold a really good position, which we did because you smoked a huge PR triple. But what I think getting microscopic about technique allows us to do is when we see the successes in training, we can point to those things and say, that's why I got better. But when we fail, more importantly, it gives us the ability, it gives us an emergency exit where we go, this is why I'm not getting stronger. And I think it doesn't allow us to look at maybe some of the deeper choices in our training because we like to default to picking on form as much as we did. Where, like, I know for my squat, I was very much like, oh, I don't know how to squat. And I was squatting over 500 pounds. I don't know about this or that or the other thing. And I think some of the choices I was making was absolutely just chasing load, right? Because I was like, if I can hit 465 for a triple, if I can hit 485 for a single at this bar velocity, then that means like, and so that means I will hit this and this and this and this. And something I learned is that that's a really great way to keep yourself right about what your squat's at, because in the experience I've had so far in doing that, in chasing that load on a squat, was very much storytelling and using. I love E1RM. I think I can give it a little too much credit when it starts telling me the things I really like.
Yeah.
And so I think you and I have talked about in our email exchanges, I was getting a little bit too married to the E1RM. I was letting the E1RM tell me a little bit too much. Because at the end of the day, it is really storytelling, and it has no idea what you can put on a bar and stand up with.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And like, obviously, like, that's one of the biggest things that we're doing when we're training, particularly for powerlifting, is we want more weight on the bar.
Yeah.
The thing that we have to understand in this lens, in this particular conversation, is that wanting more weight on the bar is not what gets more fucking weight on the bar. It is the methodical application of a training plan within a disciplined parameter that gets more weight on the bar. It has to be earned. And you earn it through time, consistency, staying with the plan and protocol. If the plan and protocol isn't right, it can be easier to see that. But if the application of the plan and protocol is off, you have no idea if the plan and protocol is wrong. Because first you have to fix the administration. And that's where all this stuff is so important for us as lifters, is we have to become good decision makers. That was one of the things that I really enjoyed with the conversation with Zach Morrow in the last podcast, was he was talking about how a lot of this stuff has been helping him make more and better decisions. And what does that do for us in life? What has been one of the biggest things that you've done in your life since that time period in 2018? You've learned to make better decisions. You're making higher quality choices, and as a result, everything in your life has become a higher quality experience. When we realize that we are in control of our choices and our choices have influence on the outcome, that's where our power lies. It's not in wanting, it's on recognizing the choices and how our choices can influence what the outcome is.
Absolutely.
And we can't recognize that when we're chasing external validation. It is impossible, because then I'm anchored to you, not me.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it.
Good.
I'm going to be thinking about that over my next few squat sessions for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that's good, because that's what we're here. That's what the intentional athlete is all about, is thinking about these little nuggets of wisdom in the session. How does it apply to the session? How does it help me make better choices? Connecting with that, bringing that back out. How does the session help me be a better father? You talked about that. How's it helped you be a better husband?
I think probably the biggest thing it's allowed me to do is be uncomfortably honest and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think before, when I was dating, I was dating people for what I wanted dating them to say about me.
Mm.
And when I met Savannah, I started realizing I like this person because I feel like I don't have to be anybody else around them. And I think the what lifting allowed me to do and what sobriety allowed me to do is be uncomfortably honest with myself, and that allowed me to be uncomfortably honest and vulnerable with her. And so not avoiding all the shit that's on my plate or in my closet, but being like, hey, this is all the stuff I got going on, good and bad. I've got some pretty cool cards in this hand. I've also got some pretty tough cards in this hand. And I think there's also some other really cool stuff, like my body's changed so much, it's allowed me to be more confident. And so it allowed me to chase someone that I really liked. But I think that's more superficial. The deeper stuff is like just being really uncomfortable, being really honest, and being able to be patient and understand that a really long relationship is going to take a really long time to build, and it is not something you ever stop building.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so real and true. Like you can't expect to go have high quality relationships if there's foggy lenses. And those foggy lenses can occur from multiple different reasons. Substance abuse being clearly one of them. But the other one is not being able to recognize your own bullshit. Like, is this an expression of something that's deeper inside you that needs to get worked through and integrated? Or are you able to be honest with yourself and see your behavior as something that is not acceptable? Can you take responsibility for it? Can you be authentic about it? Because a lot of people don't understand that authenticity means you have fucking own all you, all of it.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely.
Yep. And that only exists in truth. It only exists in honesty. And so that's really cool to hear that that's something that lifting has transpired to you. And it's fun to think about too, because like when you go into the gym and you go to train, the bar's not going to lie to you. It's not going to let you lift more than you're capable of. You might not let yourself lift more than you're capable of. You might have a self-limiting belief that comes up and stifles your expression, but the bar's not going to do it. The bar is the truth. Every day, all day.
Yeah, man. Obviously, it sounds like you've read Iron and the Soul.
I have not, but I will have to.
It's a Henry Rollins essay. It's the main thing that gets quoted the most is 200 pounds is 200 pounds. And iron never lies to you. And you just reminded me of that.
Gotcha. I mean, it's probably one of those things that I've heard other people like quote and reference,
Almost
and that's
certainly.
probably the word, the memory bank that some of those words are coming from and coming out of my mouth right now. So there's probably some influence there.
That's fair.
So I'm going to get a little weird for a minute here.
Okay.
Is Savannah around?
Savannah is watching a movie with the kids in our bedroom.
Gotcha. Because I was going to say a cool little twist to this would be, how would Savannah answer that question?
What would Savannah say has made you a better partner
Yeah.
from lifting
Yeah.
weights? And she said, one, it's really cool to have someone who's really good at coaching and knows how to program. Just saves her a lot of time and energy, and she's really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that she cited, she said, there's so much I could say, but she said, you've had to practice failure so much that you have this huge patience for me and the kids, and it allows me to get all my bullshit out as well. And I thought that was probably a pretty good answer.
Yeah, man. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I tell Savannah I appreciate her sharing that so we can get that on here and capture that, because I think that's really meaningful.
Absolutely. Me too. I liked it. I was flattered for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And then selfishly, we get to train together. And so much of the relationship early on was me working while she was home with the kids or being at school so I could go learn to be really good personal trainer. that it's now something that we do that doesn't have any screens
Yeah.
and is something really emotional and really powerful that we can connect on. And I do tend to be like, hey, I'm about to do a really big squat. I just need to be quiet for a few minutes.
Right.
But like, we get to hang out and we get to shoot the breeze. And then I also get to encourage her while she's taking these really big weights. And then I also coach her sister. So it is something that like we get to do as a family. And that's
Yeah.
been something pretty special.
Yeah, dude. That's really cool to hear. I know I'm really grateful for the time that I get to train with Rosalie and train with Vanessa and when all three of us get to train together. And a fun little story to share with you, because I think you care about it. Several weeks ago, uh, several months ago actually, I went to go do a top set by 1 at 8, and it was just Rosalie and I just messed up. I
Yeah.
just messed up. I shanked the rep. I got super heel heavy, and I had a split second to decide: do I want to grind this out and make it a by 1 at 10, or do I want to just drop it down on the pins and reload and re-go?
Yeah.
And I chose to set it down on the pins. And Rosalie hadn't seen me like fail before, because I'm usually pretty good and pretty precise and don't go beyond that limit. But I just messed up and I set it down. She's like, "Oh, are you okay? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. I just messed up. Just a
Yeah.
mistake. It happens." And like, we talked about it, and I loaded it back up and crushed it. And it was just, so it was really
Cool.
cool for her to like see failure preceding success, and like what that process
Yeah.
was to like go from missing to winning, in a sense, because she doesn't get to see that very often.
Totally.
And like, finds intrinsic value in being really good at the things that she takes on with dance and gymnastics and things like
Yeah.
that, and she like cares
Yeah,
about
dude.
her development in those things. And so I think it was really formative in a way that I probably don't even understand, to see that. So when you were talking about like the failure part and learning from that, and that creating patience, like, yeah, that's cool. That's really cool to hear that you're like gaining in that way, because that's the whole point. If we're not getting more than
Yeah, man.
just PRs out of this, it's a waste of time, a literal
Yeah.
waste of time, because then it's just external validation. It's just external seeking.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, it made me a better father because it allowed me. You gave me a really good example that reminded me of my own example. Howard, it's pretty important for me at some point for all three kids to find something physical they want to
Mm-hmm.
do, which flavor is more up to them.
Yeah.
But Howard has been doing Kaju Kenbo with a dear friend of mine. And I remember very early on, he was getting frustrated because there was a kid about his age who had just been doing it
Mm,
longer, and so he was more comfortable with
yeah.
forms. He knew all the pledges and all this kind of stuff, and I was able to, as a parent, be like, "Hey, man, I don't think you realize how long some of this stuff really takes, right? Like even your Sifu, because the instructor started at 5 years old. I was like, I guarantee you, he has plenty of stories about what he's missed, and I think people really lack the perspective on how much time this all really takes.
Yeah.
And I think he was able to connect to that in a really meaningful way. Where now, if he gets frustrated with something, either in martial arts or when he's practicing piano, he'll go, "I just need to practice that more," and that makes me swell up
Yeah, man.
because I'm like,
Yeah.
like as soon as you can understand that and be comfortable with it, you're gonna blow people out of the
Yeah.
water.
Yep. And like, there's a degree of freedom that's created in your kid with that. Like,
Totally.
you helped him free himself by no longer needing it now.
Yeah.
And gosh, like, when you carry that lesson forward into other areas of your life, like, that's a big up leveler right there.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome, Theo. Well, we've been chatting for a hot minute, and I want to be mindful of your
Sure.
time and not drag you on too terribly long, because, I mean, honestly, I could go on for days. I really appreciate a lot of the
Me too.
conversation. I want to end with one last question.
Sure.
What about this journey? Like, you go from struggling with alcohol and like that needing to be the thing, like you had to drink when you're at work, that was the thing you looked forward to the end of the day, and like you were a prisoner of that. It drove every decision you made in life. And this lifting became a catalyst to the start of the shift, to the change away from that. And move along down the years, and you meet Savannah and you become a father and you get therapy, and you really start to look at yourself in the mirror in a lot different way, in the hard ways,
Yeah.
and you're clearly a radically different individual, or at least expression of yourself now, than what you were prior to that start. What about this whole journey and the shift and change are you most proud of?
Uh, my dad pointed out, I think really early on, that when I was drinking and I wasn't invested in my life, that it was always like he was watching me pilot myself from behind me. I never looked present. I never looked like I was there with everybody else. And I think something he notices is like he was like, you're taller than I remember. Basically, it was like you're. I can tell you moved into the meat suit. And what I really liked about that was, and what I've thought about a lot since then, is there was always there's a version in all of us we'd all like to become, that we all want, that we all believe we are. And I think I will, I may never get to be that person in totality, but what I'm really proud of is I've learned to be more patient and learn how to get closer to that person. And I feel much more aligned with the person I've always felt I was than I had been before. And being able to rely on myself as someone who will show up not only for himself but the people he cares about is something I've really wanted for myself and have enjoyed seeing in myself since then.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably at the core of it what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. That's huge. What it also makes me think of another question.
Sure.
Like, what does that logically, experientially feel like when you get to a place like that where you can look at yourself? I'm curious, because I've had this moment anyway. But when you can look at
Sure.
yourself and you're just like, I'm fucking proud of you, man. I love you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. Um, let me rethink. Let me ask that question one more time, because I kind of broke that train of thought. What does it feel like physiologically to be able to see that in yourself?
Yeah.
Sometimes I get choked up, dude. Sometimes I'm like holy shit, you're doing it. Like holy shit, you're finally a person that like feels the sun on your face, and you're like, man, it feels so good to be alive.
Yeah.
And I think there's a happiness and a gratitude that I didn't have before. And
Yeah.
it's this intense relief and profound euphoria that is like, man, I'm alive. And that I don't know if there's a way to describe that aside from that. But it is absolute, it's been a spiritual thing for me, and it's amazing. It's the best feeling in the world, dude.
Yeah. That's huge. I love that, because that, like, the whole the phrase of, gratitude is not something necessarily that you speak about. It's something that you experience. And well, yes, you can do affirmations of gratitude, and I am grateful for lifting. I am grateful for this conversation. I am grateful for your fellowship. But like, the experience of gratitude for that is on
Yeah.
another level. And that's at least the thing that I hear in that moment, is like when you feel the
Yeah.
sun, you feel the gratitude, you experience the gratitude. Like, the experience of that shit. That's what it's all about, because without the experience, like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I love it, man.
Absolutely, man.
If people want to find you, how can they find you and reach out if they want to chat with you about anything more? Or,
I am Disciples of Steel on Instagram, and that's usually the way I like people to find me.
Mhm.
All of my information would be on my website, which is just discofsteel.com. And there's a link to it on my page.
Awesome.
Mom, Dad.
Cool, man. I appreciate your time, Theo.
Cool, man. I appreciate you, Ross. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely.